Players who want to enter the fighting game scene without relying on a franchise may want to consider Fantasy Strike, a free-to-play game set in the world of the same name with a simple story of gathering the world's best fighters. What makes Fantasy Strike suitable for beginners is the game's goal to remove much of the complex mechanics of fighting games. On top of each Fantasy Strike character inspired by a fighting game trope, the game's streamlined layout and dedicated specials button make fights extremely straightforward. Instead of teaching newcomers advanced mechanics, Fantasy Strike helps players get a visual feel of how certain specials are supposed to look. That way, those who venture into other games can grasp what certain maneuvers are meant to accomplish while learning combos, timings, and cancels. With the threat of the evil Android 21 and newly resurrected villains, it's up to players of Dragon Ball FighterZ to possess Goku, and the Z Fighters to defeat them. Doing so in Dragon Ball FighterZ gives players access to game-converted anime technique staples, such as teleporting vanish attacks, guard-breaking dragon rushes, projectile-defying super dashes, and energy-gathering key charge and match-acquired bonuses from the Shenron system. However, what makes DBFZ quite the newcomer game is its flexible button layout, complete with auto combos for player convenience. Its 3-character tag system also facilitates fast-paced fights with unique movesets. Considering how other Arc System Works games are infamous for being challenging anime fighters, DBFZ is an extremely fast-paced yet beginner-friendly title for the fighting game subgenre. With a story based on the Boom Studios' Power Rangers comics, Power Rangers battle for the grid unites Ranger teams across the multiverse in a bid to defeat Lord Draken, an evil version of Tommy Oliver. Despite playing similarly to Injustice with its simple button layout, Battle for the Grid becomes an unexpected hit in the fighting game scene with its heavy emphasis on tag team battles. Unlike other fighting games, Battle for the Grid is a 3v3 tag team fighter that facilitates fast and loose tag assists and switches. This system meshes well with the game's accessible button layout, as well as a separate Megazord meter to call forth the series' iconic robots. Newcomers will appreciate Battle for the Grid teaching them about timing and moveset planning in fast-paced battles, something they can apply in other games. The plot of Tekken 7 concludes the ongoing blood feud between Kazuya and Heihachi Mishima that began as far back as Tekken 1, with as many as 52 characters bearing witness to a world brought to its knees with wanton destruction. Tekken 7 remains an enjoyable game with a heavy emphasis on combos and environmental interactions. Newcomer Akuma from Street Fighter also arrives in the game with his own mechanics, such as trading Rage Drive for a Super Drive to facilitate his SF moveset. Unique to the game are cinematic rage arts, hit-absorbing power crushes, and ground-hitting screw hits. Wall hits and stuns remain a franchise staple, facilitating combos much faster. Unlike other fighting games, Tekken 7's accessible combo kit makes button mashing a decent first-timers go-to maneuver before they learn combo strings for more powerful attack chains. When Liu Kang won control over the Hourglass in Mortal Kombat 11, he attempted to reform a fairer world in Mortal Kombat 1. While much of the game's events take place in a pre-Mortal Kombat setting, disaster hits the fan quickly when dark forces begin to move about. Regardless of this expected story trajectory, Mortal Kombat 1 becomes a decent foray into both the franchise and fighting games at large given its overall approach to gameplay. Presentation-wise, MK1 boasts a comprehensive tutorial and a lengthy campaign that gives players a chance to use all available characters. Features-wise, the game retains signature gory fatalities and brutalities, with a new cameo fighters mechanic that diversifies gameplay. The game's 4 billion setup makes combos accessible, encouraging players to spam moves, while also learning how to string combos. Although the events of Injustice allowed Batman's insurgency to stop Superman's regime for global domination, the arrival of Supergirl changes the game completely in Injustice 2. Fans of the comic books can once again see their favorite heroes duke it out in a brutal fighting game, with NetherRealm Studios following a simpler control scheme and a visually customizable gear system for gamers to create their favorite versions of their heroes. On top of straightforward direction-based light, medium, and heavy attacks, Injustice 2 units only need a single button to access signature character powers, throws, and even stance flips. Complications do arise should fans want to dominate multiplayer, as the game's system is combo demanding. However, the game's single-player campaign does wonders in encouraging players to explore Injustice 2 combat in depth. While Guilty Gear Strive continues the franchise's rather complex plot about all-powerful gears, its revamped gameplay makes this Arc System Works game more accommodating for fighting game newcomers. Still boasting an 8-direction, 6-button 6 billion layout like its predecessors, Guilty Gear Strive has a more straightforward approach to its mechanics. Mission mode forces players to learn the game's fundamentals through set objectives, while systems such as clashes, faultless defenses, psychic bursts, and Roman cancels facilitate smoother combos. Although Strive maintains its high skill ceiling, Having a more accessible gameplay loop can teach gamers playstyles they can apply to other high-octane fighting games. Fighting game newcomers who want to start playing a more playful take on the genre should consider trying them's Fighting Herds. The spiritual successor of the unreleased fighting game of devs from Main 6 based on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. The cartoonish take on the game isn't to be underestimated, however, as the 4-button experience features fighters with wildly different abilities interspersed with universal mechanics such as basic combos, sweeps, launches, and anti-air attacks. However, where them's Fighting Herds becomes interesting is the inclusion of a magic system. Fighters have different magic properties and attacks that come with them, with some combatants filling up their magic over time while others start matches with a full meter with no way to recharge. Magic attacks vary from character to character, with options such as summons, dynamic movement, and powerful strikes that complement their base build. Technically the final update for 2012's Dead or Alive 5, gamers can get the definitive experience with Dead or Alive 5 Last Round, as it consolidates features and characters across its different iterations. However, while fighting game newcomers may immediately notice how Dead or Alive 5 has quite the roster of fanservice-y characters, it's the more active combat style combined with the title's new interactive mechanics that make it a thrilling first fighting game experience. The key to Dead or Alive 5 Last Round is the return of its interruption triangle system, where technically all moves can be punished provided players understand how characters act. Here, normal attacking strikes defeat throws. The traditional smackdown throw defeats holds, and intercepting holds counter-strikes. Newcomers to fighting games might find it tricky to adjust to how throws don't defeat strikes in Die 5, and it's understanding this adjustment that can help fighting game newbies adjust to most other games. At first glance, Tekken 8 boasting the same robust combo system as its predecessors might make it seem like a tricky game to pick up. However, compared to other titles, the Tekken newcomer offers a jam-packed story, more accessible debut characters, and fully customizable characters to make the fighting game experience more alluring to genre newcomers. Moreover, Tekken 8's slate of new features makes the title a worthwhile first game for those just dipping their toes into the competitive fighting game genre. Key to this is the game's replay mode, which essentially allows one to replay a match against a human opponent to try and find ways of countering strong enemies they lost to. This can help players further explore Tekken 8 mechanics, such as the ability to recover health through offense and the heat system that enhances attacks for a limited time. This comes with the franchise's other slate of unique mechanics, such as rage art specials and wall breaks. Despite a rather lackluster initial foray into the fighting game scene, Granblue Fantasy vs Rising showcases the potential of the Granblue Fantasy RPG franchise to become a thrilling weapons-based 2.5D anime fighter. The game's 28-player roster, in-depth story, new mechanics, and even special modes make vs Rising a feature-packed offering worthy of being picked up by fighting game newcomers. While vs Rising's slate of new mechanics can seem overwhelming, they become a worthwhile addition to the game's accessible gameplay loop. Ultimate skills with special properties, bravery points that provide punishments for blocks, and anti-block raging strikes add versatility to a player's options in combat. Understanding what these skills imply and integrating them into a character's unique fighting style can give players an idea of what more competitive fighting game titles have on offer. While not necessarily an intense fighting game in the traditional sense, Yomi allows players to bask in the thrill of the battlefield from the palm of their own hands. Technically a video game adaptation of the card game of the same name, Yomi tasks players to knock out a player through different action cards that follow a rock-paper-scissors weakness system and effects depending on which moves they choose. Following the traditional fighting game system, blocks defeat attacks, attacks defeat throws, and throws defeat blocks. Where Yomi becomes special is its integration of other fighting game-related mechanics. Winning with blocks earns more cards and is helpful against attacks, which can be used to chain combos. However, players can make opponents think they're about to chain attacks before pulling a throw on their block, gaining control of the field. Despite being a card game, Yomi trains players in the innate mental gymnastics of the fighting game genre. Objectively speaking, it's impressive how Super Smash Bros. Has become a competitive juggernaut in the FGC. However, at its core, Super Smash Bros. Is one of the most beginner-friendly fighting game franchises around. Unlike almost every other fighting game, the control scheme of this series has largely stayed the same since the first entry, and the same is true about its core mechanics. As a result, its move inputs are simple for the youngest gamers to play. DNF Duel features similar beginner-friendly mechanics as GBVS, including simplified command inputs. Plus, the game's tutorials are as detailed, if not more so, than its peer. Still, while DNF Duel is a quick game to learn, its levels of complexity run deep. For instance, the game's MP skill system heavily emphasizes deft resource management. Plus, its cancelling mechanics open the possibility for long strings of combos. While Street Fighter 6 hands in the reins of the protagonist to the player's own avatar, its events taking place after Street Fighter 3 will still have gamers embark on a familiar tournament-based story mode. Regardless of this overused trope, Street Fighter 6 secures fan appeal with its customizability options, ranging from different control schemes, 4 billion modern, 6 billion classic, AI-assisted dynamic, unique attacks via super attacks, and the new drive gauge system that improves techniques. Combat-wise, mastering the basics of Street Fighter 6 serves as a decent foray into other fighting game systems. Players can use SF6 as a basis to learn fundamentals such as cancels, charges, and links. Mastery over characters can also familiarize beginners with archetypes, such as space-controlling zoners, fast-paced rushdowns, and trapping grapplers. Although an indie title, players who want to dissect fighting games to their bare essentials should consider giving Footsie's Rollback Edition a shot. The game only has a forward, backward, and a single attack button that, when held and released, leads into a special. Players win the match by removing the opposing player's 3 shields and hitting them with a special attack. This extremely bare-bones approach to a fighting game surprisingly gives gamers an easy way of learning one of the most important aspects of the genre: controlling the space. The term footsies describes playing with the space between a character and an opponent, goading them into moving into a player's attack range. Mastering footsies can make learning other titles much easier, especially when most fighting game mechanics are tied to taking advantage of space.